here's a story from The World.
50 years after the Vietnam War ended, some of the scars it left have healed, but not all of them. The chemical Agent Orange, dropped from U.S. planes to eradicate jungles, has proven notoriously hard to remove from Vietnam soil, even though the U.S. has spent decades trying. As The World's Patrick Winn reports, there's another wartime chemical getting much less attention, even though it is still making people in Vietnam sick.
Kenneth Olson served in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War, but never deployed there. He always wanted to see the country, though. Or better yet, to crawl through those famous tunnels dug by communist fighters outside Ho Chi Minh City. So in 2016, he went on a tunnel tour.
I didn't go very far. I'm a little bit claustrophobic.
Emerging back into the daylight, something caught his eye.
When I crawled out, I looked and the trees were all slender and dwarfed, and I kind of wondered why.
Olson is trained to notice foliage. He's an agronomist, a soil expert, and professor emeritus at the University of Illinois. Olson was struck by the sheer persistence of toxic defoliants dumped by the U.S. on Vietnam's lush jungles decades ago. He started looking into all the chemicals used back then and realized Agent Orange, that's only half the story. A lumbering C-123 cargo plane dumping thousands of gallons of chemicals over South Vietnam, as captured in the mid-1960s by a TV news crew. An officer on board explains the mission.
We have a lot of areas where the enemy are hiding under this canopy of trees, and our job is to defoliate so that the enemy is not able to hide from our forward air controllers that go around looking for the enemy.
To wipe out heavy foliage, they dumped Agent Orange. But what if U.S. forces wanted to poison crops so the communists couldn't eat? Olson says that called for a different chemical, Agent Blue.
Agent Blue was designed to kill the rice. It was arsenic-based. And the problem with arsenic is it doesn't have a half-life.
Agent Blue wasn't actually blue. It was clear and odorless, but it came in a steel drum marked by a blue ring. It was about 1/3 arsenic, a stubborn chemical that sticks around for decades in soil, stunting trees and polluting groundwater.
And remember, the water often gets mixed in with the food supply, right? Shrimp, fish, rice.
All staples of a rural Vietnamese dinner, then and now. Injuries from arsenic are insidious. The chemical slowly builds up in the body, causing skin cancer, lesions, and heart disease.
I calculated how much pure arsenic was sprayed in South Vietnam. I came up with over 1 million kilograms. That's over 2 million pounds of pure arsenic.
Olson has become one of the foremost Agent Blue researchers, working with Vietnamese academics and publishing findings in peer-reviewed journals. But their work is overshadowed by Agent Orange. Its infamy comes from tragic effects on kids. Even if someone is exposed to Agent Orange residue today, their kids can have severe birth defects.
We now have a 4th generation of Agent Orange victims in Vietnam.
Phan Xuân Dung is a Vietnamese researcher with the ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute in Singapore.
There were other agents like Agent Blue and White and Pink. Agent Orange was just one of them, but it was the most widely used, so it remains the biggest problem.
There are 2 major anniversaries this year in Vietnam. It's been 50 years since Vietnam's reunification, and also 30 years since Vietnam and America normalized relations. Since then, the U.S. has spent nearly $500 million decontaminating Agent Orange sites, cleaning out dioxin, its most toxic ingredient. Phan says this work is the foundation of U.S.-Vietnam relations. It allows leaders to say, look, the Americans are trying to make things right.
From the Vietnamese government's perspective, Agent Orange is a chemical weapon, and the use of Agent Orange was a war crime.
America's Agent Orange cleanup projects are now up in the air as part of the Trump administration's cuts and freezes to foreign aid, refocusing on domestic problems.
If the U.S. walks away, it sends a very bad message to Vietnam. It will further reinforce Vietnam's idea that the U.S. is not a really reliable partner.
This comes at a time when the work of Professor Kenneth Olson and others indicates the aftermath of chemical dumping is actually worse than many believe. There are no U.S.-backed cleanup programs for Agent Blue, and a recent independent study is pretty alarming. It shows that in certain Vietnamese villages, arsenic levels in groundwater are through the roof, and that roughly 1 in 80 deaths each year in Vietnam can be attributed to arsenic exposure. Olson says in rural Agent Blue hotspots, Vietnamese families are at severe risk.
It's not like you're a veteran and you're there 1 year and you're gone. These people are still living there. They're still eating it. It's still getting in the food supply.
There are potential solutions: improving water treatment plants, cleaning arsenic out of crop soil, even cheap filters that families can use for drinking water. But Olson says, for now, Agent Blue remediation is a distant priority. For The World, I'm Patrick Winn, Bangkok.